You're all very welcome to Aspects of Opera. And do I really need to tell you what tonight's opera is? No, I thought not. But I'll tell you, this opera, more than any other, was many people's first introduction to the magic of opera, thanks to a famous petrol company. You know, its great initial failure has been its great success. Whether Carmen was a failure or not depends on the meaning we attach to the term. On the first night, the critics brought it down, most of them being musically illiterate. But why should that matter, they say? We're writing for the public. Then why on earth did the public remain interested? It received 35 performances during the 3 months that remained of the 1875 season. Where does that leave the critics? I suppose we're all wise after the event, aren't we? Anyway, Bizet's Carmen was produced at the Opéra Comique Paris on the 3rd of March 1875, and its composer died exactly 3 months later, on the 3rd of June. But the very day before he died, he signed an agreement with the Vienna Opera for a production there. And I don't mind telling you, directors of opera houses are pretty hard-boiled and rarely approach a composer for the rights to a new work that has been a failure. Bizet died outrageously young, as I've said before, but why, oh why, 3 months after Carmen? Broken-hearted after the slating by the critics? I don't think so. He knew how good it was, and so did the artists. It's true his constitution wasn't the best, and his throat always gave him trouble, so perhaps his time had come. But opera's time had also come. The most famous opera ever written was born, and it was Georges Bizet who gave it to us. So, with great thanks, let's enjoy the overture and the masterpiece that's about to unfold before us. A touch of tragedy there towards the end of the overture, don't you think? But let me take you to Seville in the last century, outside a tobacco factory. Not the poshest part of town. We see a guardhouse, people passing by. But isn't opera supposed to be posh? Not to Bizet, it isn't. Listen here to the soldiers singing of the place, and the square, and typically they sing mostly the notes of the chord, the only notes afforded to the bugle, but contrasted beautifully with elaborate scale passages. What could be simpler? What could be lovelier? Listen. What poor area would be complete without kids running around? First, a military march is heard in the distance. The new guard appears, followed by a gang of kids. We see Corporal Don Jose and Lieutenant Zuniga for the first time. Try to imagine that magnificent painting of the National Gallery by Moynihan called Military Manoeuvres, and you'll get the full effect. And this effect is further achieved with a fife and drum. At first with the young voices, but then towards the end gives way to the warmth of the full orchestra accompanying the children. What I love most about Bizet is that he serves the good wine early. Do you remember how early the pearl duet came in that opera? Well, it's the same here. May I present La Carmencita, Carmen if you prefer, a gypsy girl of wild and strange beauty. Her eyes are voluptuous and fierce. She works in a tobacco factory where they hardly wear anything. Can you just imagine the reaction of the first audience to this diva? Shouldn't a diva be respectable and honourable? Not Carmen, she's out for a good time, and she's a thief. Shouldn't a diva be at least well-dressed and sing soprano? Not Carmen, she hardly wears anything, I'm delighted to tell you, and my girl tonight is a mezzo. I prefer Carmen as a mezzo, even though it's often sung by sopranos. I've chosen my girl well, a mixture of Greek and Puerto Rican, so the voice is just right. Her legato voice will contrast the staccato rhythm of the habanera in the orchestra. Her one voice will also balance and subdue the full chorus. Her perfect body will move as she sings to the rhythm of the music, and her quarry, Don Jose, will fall helplessly in love with her.
Il me vient du ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Si je t'aime, prends garde à toi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Mais si je t'aime, si je t'aime, prends garde à toi.
Such boldness. In her own words, love is a child of gypsy life. The laws he loves to flout. If you won't love me, I'll love you. And if I love you, then watch out. She throws cassia flowers to Don Jose and returns to work to the sound of the bell. She ignores the admiration and taunts of all the young men as she departs. They call to her, "Carmen, at your heels we press. Carmen, be good now. Do say yes." They all exit, except Don Jose. He picks up the flower that has fallen at his feet. What's happening to him? He has a girlfriend he's promised to marry. Good, sweet, angelic Michaela. But as he ponders, the words of Carmen haunt him through the voices of the factory girls. Michaela arrives with a letter for Don Jose from his mother, and everything seems rosy. Don Jose and Michaela are to be married, with the mother's blessing. Suddenly, a disturbance at the tobacco factory, and yes, it is Carmen who's involved, sees Don Jose having to take her prisoner for slashing another girl's face. When she's close enough, she points her chin at his breast. Her hands are tied, you see. Think of the situation. If her chin points to his breast, then her eyes are gazing into his. I saw where you hid the flowers. You can throw them away now. They've stayed long enough upon your heart. Hold your tongue, don't speak to me. Very well then, your worship. You bid me hold my tongue. I'll say no more. Ah, but she sings, and how she sings. This piece is the very antithesis of the habanera, a sort of barcarolle, with just a teeny helping of, how shall I call it, Iberian coloratura, by the ramparts of Seville, with flute foremost. You'll hear Don Jose trying to resist from time to time, the poor fool.
J'irai danser la cible d'Ivoire du Manzanilla. J'irai chez mon ami de la Spazia. Oui, mais toutes se lanceront et les vrais périssements à deux. Donc pour me tenir compagnie, j'emmènerai mon amour. Mon amour. Il est au diable, je l'ai mis à la portière, mon pauvre cœur très consolable, mon cœur est libre comme l'air. J'ai des galants à la douzaine, mais ils ne sont pas à mon gré. Voici la fin de leur semaine, qui veut m'aimer, je l'aimerai, qui veut m'en âme. Prendre, vous arrivez un bon moment. Je n'ai guère le temps d'attendre qu'avec mon nouvel amant. Près des rameaux de Séville, chez mon ami la Spazia, j'irai danser la cible d'Ivoire du Manzanilla. Oui, j'irai chez mon ami la Spazia.
C'est toi, je t'avais dit de ne pas me parler.
Je ne te parle pas, je chante pour moi-même, je chante pour moi-même. Et je pense, il n'est pas défendu de penser. Je pense à certains officiers, je pense à certains officiers qui m'aiment et qu'à mon tour, oui, qu'à mon tour, je voulais bien aimer.
Carmen,
Mon officier n'est pas un capitaine, pas même un lieutenant. Il n'est que brigadier, mais c'est assez pour une bohémienne. Et je daigne m'en contenter.
Carmen, je suis comme un livre. Si je sais, si je me livre, ta promesse, tu la tiendras. Ainsi pour Carmen, tu m'aimeras. Chez la Spazia,
Nous danserons
tu me promets,
la Ségodia,
Carmen,
en buvant du Manzanilla.
tu le promets.
Près des ramparts de Séville, chez mon ami la Spazia, nous danserons la Ségodia, du Manzanilla. La 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 la.
Don Jose is a fool, but I say that as a compliment to his normality. All men are fools when it comes to falling in love, mixed with adventure. He spends a month in prison for helping Carmen to escape. He's now wildly and hopelessly in love with her. Ah, but Don Jose, remember Carmen's words. L'amour est un oiseau rebelle. Love is a mutinous bird. You see, Carmen is the sort of girl who wants what she thinks she can't have, and then when she has it, she doesn't know what to do with it. The it refers to men. She has Don Jose, but she's beginning to tire of the very thing that attracted her to him in the first place, uniform. Here, Carmen sings of her love for the gypsy life. You'll notice the sound of the hammers, a reminder of Il Trovatore. From this slow start, the music that accompanies Carmen's voice will at last burst into a mad, frenzied dance. Act 2, the place Lias Pastias Tavern. Carmen, Frasquita, Mercedes sit with a group of officers. Gypsy girls dance. Others play guitars and tambourines. Listen to the magnificent accelerando.
Le train des sistres tentées avec un éclat métallique et sur cette étrange musique les zingarellas se levaient. Tambour de Pascal et leur train et les guitares forcenées grincer sous des mains obstinées, même chanson, même refrain, même chanson, même refrain. Tra-la-la-la, les ânes de cuivre et d'argent reluisaient sur les paupistrées, d'oranges et zébrées, les étoffes flottaient au vent. La danse aux chants se mariait, la danse aux chants se mariait, d'abord indécis et timide, puis ensuite et plus rapide, cela montait, 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 montait. Tra-la-la-la, 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 tra-la-la-la,
Carmen is growing tired with an army uniform, then what about the uniform of a toreador? Enter Escamillo, the bullfighter, charming, full of bravado and style, then as now regarded as a demigod. If Carmen could be equalled sexually, then Escamillo is the man. What a prize, and what a song he sings. This set piece is the very blood of opera. I can think of no other musical dish that can equal this one. The voice, the chorus, the orchestra with crashing dominant sevenths everywhere. Carmen, I think you've met your match in this baritone.
Seigneur, Seigneur, car avec les soldats, les toreros peuvent s'entendre. Pour plaisir, ils ont les combats. Le cirque est plein, c'est jour de fête, le cirque est plein d'idiots en bas. Les spectateurs perdent la tête, les spectateurs s'interpellent à grand apostrophe, crisez ta page, poussez jusqu'à la fureur. Car c'est la fête du courage, c'est la fête de gens de cœur. Allons, en garde, allons, allons, toreador, en garde, toreador, toreador. Et songe bien, oui, songe un combattant, car les noirs te regardent, et que l'amour t'attend, toreador. L'amour, l'amour t'attend. Toreador, en garde, toreador, toreador. Et songe bien, oui, songe un combattant, car les noirs te regardent, et que l'amour t'attend, toreador. L'amour, l'amour t'attend. Tout d'un coup, on fait silence, ah, que se passe-t-il? Plus de cris célestants, plus de cris célestants, les taureaux s'élancent en bondissant, horrible. Il s'élance, il entre, il frappe, un cheval roule, entraînant un picador. Oh bravo taureau, hurle la poule, le taureau va, et bien, et revanchard. C'est quoi ces banderilles, plein de purée, il court, le cirque est plein de sang. On s'essore, on franchit la grille, c'est un tour maintenant. Allons, en garde, allons, allons, toreador, en garde, toreador, toreador. Et songe bien, oui, songe un combattant, car les noirs te regardent, et que l'amour t'attend, toreador. L'amour, l'amour t'attend. Toreador, en garde, toreador, toreador. Et songe bien, oui, songe un combattant, car les noirs te regardent, et que l'amour t'attend, toreador. L'amour, l'amour t'attend.
A short dialogue between Carmen and Escamillo seals Carmen's fate. She is now smitten by the charm and style of Escamillo. "My next bull is yours," he tells her. Do you remember when Don Jose was smitten? The girls sang as they returned to work, and Don Jose pondered. Well, now it's Carmen's turn to ponder, as the male chorus sing a refrain of Escamillo's song. But first, dialogue.
Dis-moi ton nom, et la première fois que je frapperai le taureau, je te l'offrirai.
Carmen ou la Carmencita, comme tu voudras.
Eh bien, Carmencita, si je m'avisais de t'aimer et d'être aimé de toi, qu'est-ce que tu répondrais?
Je répondrai que pour le moment, il n'y faut pas songer.
J'attendrai alors, je me contenterai d'espérer.
Il n'est pas défendu d'attendre, il est toujours doux d'espérer.
But Don Jose is not beaten yet. He still has the flower Carmen threw at him. Do you remember when she threw the flower at his feet? And he's always kept it. And though it died, it's kept its sweetness. As he sings this most moving love song, you'd imagine any girl's heart would melt, but not Carmen's. Just picture the scene. Don Jose, flower in hand, bowing, crouching. Carmen, bolt upright, with eyes, those fierce, voluptuous eyes, fixed somewhere in the distance on another man. What could be worse for Don Jose as he sings La fleur que tu m'avais jetée, the flower you threw at my feet?
Je ne chantais qu'un seul désir.
One of my favorite pieces of music from Carmen is this little orchestral entr'acte as we come to Act 3. Just a guitar plucking the strings and flute, which gives way and plays counterpoint to a clarinet. We find ourselves in the mountains with the smugglers wrapped in their cloaks. The last action takes place at the ancient bullring in Seville. Listen to Bizet's animated orchestral entr'acte in Spanish flamenco style, stimulating melody and rhythm, major and minor transitions, the very stuff of Spain, a country in which Bizet delighted. A broken-hearted Don Jose tries to fight a duel of cloak and dagger with Escamillo, but he loses. Escamillo spares him, saying, "My business is to slaughter bulls, not to take men's lifeblood." While Escamillo is doing just that in the bull ring, another final action takes place outside. Carmen will not go with Don Jose ever. "You can kill me if you like. I was born free and I'll die free." Just as the bull is struck dead, so is Carmen, to a great cry of victory in the bull ring, and "My beloved Carmen" outside. The tragic irony is never lost on Bizet. The gallant bull, in spite of all its power and strength, dies at the same time as Carmen, the sweet bird of youth, both in their prime. It's left to us, the audience, to decry man's complex, sometimes cruel nature. So, the final curtain falls with Don Jose, blood-stained dagger in hand, the once vibrant, often vituperative Carmen lying motionless. It's left to the cellos to weep for Carmen. This they do in a delightful counterpoint to the main melody of the Toreador's song. Don Jose laments his loss, and the curtain falls. And I'm afraid the curtain has fallen for us too. So until we meet again next week, I bid you all, wherever you may be, a very good night. Good night.
Vous pouvez m'arrêter